This is a presentation on the new major features in the latest release of OpenBridge Designer. Right, so we have released OpenBridge Designer last month, right, at different dates. So this is the official name. It's 2021 Release 2. That's how we are calling it. That was some of a delay. We're trying to release in December, right? So it's 2021 Release 2. That's how we are calling that. So just look for it on your connect.bentley.com under software downloads. You can download this version, right? So as you know, OpenBridge Designer includes internally OpenBridge Modeler, as you can see on the list, LeapBridge Concrete, LeapBridge Steel, and RBridge. This is the latest version with the latest updates on the design codes. Right? We have two new features there in OpenBridge Designer that we can go over with this very quick. So one of them is that we now can merge OBDX files. We know, you know as well, that the OBDX file is kind of a manager file, right? So it stores your Leap runs or your Leap files, as well as store the location where the DGN file that you're using OBM is located, right? But this is kind of how I treat it, at least myself, as a personal file, and then maybe another engineer has his own projects, but then you want to consolidate them into a single one. So we got the option now to merge these OBDX files, right? So that information, again, in the OBDX file, you just have to activate it, right? As you go file open merge option, right? So there are two OBDX files. It entertains both workflows, right? The Beam workflow and the standalone workflow. And it allows you to consolidate the Leap concrete and steel files that you may have into different projects. As you can see here, I have two different OBDXs, right? And I want to consolidate all that information, even not only the Leap, but the RM stuff too, into a single OBDX project, maybe for archiving process. Right? So what we need to do then on this is to select the options. Right? So all these, again, the second engineer has these Leap and steel and RM files too. So saying that, as we go through this, right, he has to activate the option of, let me come back to this, file merge, right? So, and you select the two OBDX files, and it's going to give you a table of what you want to merge and how you want to do it, right? Be careful when you have files with the same name, kind of unlikely, but that it may happen. So you need to decide what you want to do with these files, right? Now, obviously, always create a backup because there is no undo process here, right? So create a backup, then apply the merge option. Right? So you need to decide here what action to take. Okay. Now, maybe this is not something that you want to do today, but sometimes for archiving process that you have 2, 3 bridges, 3 different engineers working on that, and you just want to consolidate one into a single project. So that will be the option to use there. Okay. Also, the other enhancement that we have included in OpenBridge Designer is, as you can see, I can have different Leap runs into my project. And sometimes you want another engineer to review that. So if I have a Leap file, there was no way before to send this file to another engineer unless I send my whole OBDX project, entire OBDX, or with all the bridges inside. So now you got the option to say, export the analytical file. So you can pick and choose what Leap concrete or Leap steel or RM file you want to send, and it's going to export just that file to a different computer if you want, right? Or save it separately. So I can extract, right, the entire group, or just one LEAP concrete file, just LEAP, so another engineer can just review it in LEAP only as well. So it's just a basic, straightforward option. Just say analytical file, and you can send it to a complete different directory. And do it. Okay, so these are the two major upgrades that we have done on the shell of OpenBridge Design. Now, but I know that most of the updates have come on OpenBridge mode. You know as well that we have two products, right? OpenBridge Designer, that includes modeler and the analytical solutions, concrete, LEAP steel, and OpenBridge, right? But also, we have now a standalone OpenBridge mode that was also released last month. So, same name, OpenBridge Modeler Connect Edition 2021 Release 2. So, this is the version. It's built on the latest MicroStation platform and OpenRoads platform. So there is a lot of questions asking, oh, is it going to work with the latest release in OpenRoads? Yes. Is it going to work with all the release of OpenRoads? Yes, too, right? So we, remember, in OpenBridge Modeler, we read the alignment and profile coming from Civil. So it doesn't matter if it's, 2019, 2020, 2021, we just read it. So it's not issue there. So no concern. It's going to work with the latest release or previous releases of OpenRoads. Right? Now, caveat here is, again, the other question that everybody asks is, what about the schema change? Yes, we have a schema change. Basically, every version of OpenBridge Modeler, we treat it as a major release, meaning every version is a schema change. Okay, so it's different in OpenRoads. In OpenRoads, they have something called major releases and upgrades, so not a schema change or a very minor one. On ours, on OpenBridge Modeler, every release is treated as a major release. It considers a schema change, so be very careful again when you work for maybe different DOTs that use different versions of ODM. What version you want to update. That is schema change. The way we treat it as a major release, it affects the installation, because now we entertain the option to side-by-side installations. Before we couldn't do that, now we can. And so you can have 10.09 version with the 10.10 with the 10.10.20. So we can have everything installed in a separate directory if you want. Right? So if you have an old project still lingering 10.09, leave it there. When you install our new version, well, it will install in a separate directory, separate icons, separate defaults, and all of that. So we have side-by-side installation. Because again, we consider this a schema change, a major release. Okay. Also, a major upgrade as well is that now you can run full ProStructures within OBM. Remember that in previous versions we have the ProConcrete tools there, right? That you can do rebar detailing inside OpenBridge. But then, people were saying, oh, we're a little short because we don't have the planks production tools that the ProConcrete offers. We don't have a steel detailing. We cannot create custom bar lists that the full version of ProConcrete or steel ProStructures consider it. So we decided to include the entire ProStructure software inside OpenBridge mode. So not only do we have concrete tools, but steel, all the plans production, the full ProStructures is included in it. The caveat here is that, well, you need a license ProStructures, right? So the way it works is basically the ProStructures icon. You just have to activate. So you can get a license to this, or you need to have a license to that, and it will activate for you as we rearrange it, the entire rig. Okay. So, there is no more ProConcrete. When you activate the license, you will have a new workflow for structural detailing. That is again the full ProStructure. You need a license for that, and this license is activated until you just deactivate it. So you activate it one time, you're going to still be using the license for the entire session. If you exit the software, fine, you don't use the license. When you start the software again, you will check out the license too, so it remains active for you, right? So be careful on that, because you may get into unwanted extra usage or over usage. So, and not everybody needs a full license for ProStructures. You can activate it here. There is a configuration variable that you can set up your config files for your users. So even though if they do the activate option, it's not going to check out or use a license of ProStructures. That's to prevent the overusage, right? So just that. So then let's go with what we have, right? So, for example, one of the major things is the use of approaches lab. So if I may, let me switch to software here. So I'm going to start OpenBridge design, and you see what happened when I have this schema change. So I'm using, as usual, my training files. So I will open OpenBridge Designer is open. I will just go to OpenBridge Modeler. As it's open, let's see what's happening. It's opening in my other screen. Sorry about that. It's happening here. It's going to come out. Okay, here we go. All right, I select the workspace. I'm going to select, and let's use with this SteamBridge file. I'm going to open it. And this file, my file, it comes from the previous training, 10.10. And this is the message that you're going to encounter when you upgrade to the new software. Right? You will say, hey, this file is 10.10 version. Now you are running this or trying to run it with 10.10.20. So do you want to upgrade it? Right? So, well, if you say yes, it will upgrade to the new version. Right? Now, what happens is, if I upgrade it and somebody goes with the previous version of OpenBridge Modeler and try to open the file, it will open it, but it will open it as clear only. You cannot modify the bridge because it was upgraded to a new scheme. So what I'm doing here is I'm upgrading to the latest scheme. I just wanted to show you that message. This is what you want to encounter every time you have, let's see, own file being open in the latest version of OpenBridge. Okay, so let's wait until it loads the standards here. Monitor the chat window. Not much questions in the chat, so feel free on the chat window. It's open, it's accessible, or you can access that. No questions there. Right, so it's opening. I have kind of about OpenBridge. So I got a simple bridge there, simple to show the new tools that are coming. Like this. Explorer here. Okay. So what is the new tool that I mentioned before? It was the option to do approaches, right? So just very quick. We can do approach slabs. We also consider sleeper slabs, and there is a library for sleeper slabs, right? With many placement options. Well, you can synchronize with the deck, apply some offsets. Let me show you that. Okay, so this is on the ribbon. This is the new approach slab. So you can place an approach slab. You can place a reference line, place the actual approach, and place the sleeper slab. And when we mention a new library, is that right here in my utilities option, I got a library now for a sleeper slabs. We don't have a library for approach slab. Approach slab is just basically part of the deck, which is the deck library, so no need for that. But we have a sleeper slab. And on that, if we review it, this is the library that we have. right? You can create your own. Again, it's the same as the peer library. It stores at the same location, as you can see, right? It's the part of the peer.lib.xml in your configuration file. So as we have it here, for example, let's explore the inverted T sleeper slab. So I can go edit, and these are all the options right here. So I'm going to measure it, right? What's going to be your reference line and the dimensions to it. Oh, it's they're reactive like the peers. So you can just save it, copy. So this is your sleeper slab library. That is again a new library included there, and it's part of your peerlib.xml, right? So in that. So now let's place sleepers, or let's place a slab. So to go to the beginning of the bridge right here and save it, I'm going to place one. So first, what I need to do is place a new reference line. So kind of a new support line, but we call it the reference line for the slabs right here. And it reacts to it. And this is how you place it. See, you got the options here. And it could be a different skew angle. The length, remember, is the length of that blue line. And offset from the support line, you can also hard code it, or you can just eyeball it. I'm going just to do it here to show something big here. The location is the start of the bridge, right? And the skew angle, I'm going to hard code it. So 0 degrees. Right, and accept it. No, Annette, the approach slab is not part of the bridge wizard. That's a good one. You could have done it. It's not part of the bridge wizard. The approach slab is something extra there. Okay, so, and that's it. Now, oh, this is the text size that is showing up here. So I'm going to switch it to something kind of small so it doesn't bother us. Okay, so that is the reference line of the approach slab. And now let's place the approach slab itself. So I can go home here, approach slab, between the reference line and the support line of the bridge. It's going to be start, right? I'm not going to synchronize with the deck. I just want to place it flat. You will see what it means synchronize on the deck. So it's going to take the properties of the deck. It's going to take the template library of the deck, everything about the deck. So same cross slopes, thickness, and everything. So you don't need to do much if you want. I'm going to do that for the end. But here on purpose, I'm going to go with template. So as you know, it's going to pick up the same template or one of the templates available for your decks. Right, so I don't know the default, so I just want to select it, right? And I can place it the same as the deck with constraints and offsets. And also we entertain the option to do an approach slab material. Right? So you may need to define that in your material line. We will quantify that, of course. So let's do that. No constraints. Let's place it as it comes from the library. I'm going to adjust that later as it comes, right? Maybe not that much connectivity and all of that, but that's fine because now I can go and edit it. I'll show you all the other options that come with it, right? So, for example, here, right? I didn't select it on purpose to synchronize with the deck, right? So, well, I want it now. Again, I could have done this from the very beginning. I just wanted to show you this. I want to synchronize with the deck automatically. So, and then it's just going to take the deck, the template, and it's just going to put it at the proper skew angle and everything else. So it is completely synchronized with the width of the deck and everything else. So I don't need to worry too much about it. Right? So that is the option of synchronize with the deck. Now the other options, horizontal offset, the stage of offset. So not something that we use typically, but the synchronize with the deck is the option I want to show. Now, what it could be, if you have the option to create a sleeper slab, right? So let's place a sleeper slab. One more time. Place it. We select it from the library, right? Remember, I showed you the library on that. So we have a library. So let's place the L1. Select it. Don't mind the orientation. We know. So we're going to just flip it if it's at the start or the end. Right? There are more options, right? Conform with the back wall, with the approach, with the top, right, of the slab, with the bottom, elevation constraints if I need to, the width of the slab, of the sleeper slab, is controlled by the approach slab, align it or not, skew it or not. So again, all that options available to you. Right? So I'm going to place it at the start. I also can place it at the end. In one shot, I cannot do it now because I haven't placed an approach slab at the end. Right? And then also, we just add material that I wanted to use for the sleeper slab to say something. Right? So saying that, that's it. Set it, continue, done. And then you don't need to worry about matching or anything like that. It's there. So when you place it at the end, it's the same process as I could have done it all in one shot. But now you know how this is done. Right? Of course, it obeys all the parametrics too. Right? So here on the sleeper slab, for example, here, right, I can also change the skew angle. And it will just get modified with the sleeper slab too, and still synchronizing with the deck, matching everything. So that is that option. Okay, so I think my colleagues can fire answer on the questions, release notes, yes. Yep, good question. Thank you, Dylan, for answering this. Okay, so now let's come back to 5 here. So now I'm just going to move to the end, and I'm going to place another approach slab. It's the same process, right? But I'm going to show you the next upgrade that we have done here, right? Let me set up my screen. That's good. Okay, here. The next upgrade that we have done, it's something that also a lot of DOTs are doing. That is this, corbel on the abutments, right? So it's applicable for the abutments, of course, right? We used to have a notch, right? So, but now we got the option to place a corbel there with dimensions, even with the slopes, right? And it comes like that with, again, a lot of options there, right? Conform with your back wall, vertical offsets, and all of that. So let's do it live. I come back. So basically, this corbel is not a new element. It was just an addition to the abutments that we already have. So I have an abutment here. Remember, this was upgraded to the new schema, so it will have that. So now let's go edit the template. Same thing. So I will go substructure template, and let's go edit that template. Right? And this is the normal abutment that we have, right? That we have placed. But now, again, since this was with the new schema, has upgraded with the option to give me corbel. So I will activate the option. Right? Let's place some dimension. So let's do 20 inches there. Right? With a depth of 20. Let's go for it, for example, just to say, see, this is what is coming up. So it updates here. 9 inches. Oh. Inches, slope depth, vertical offset, oh, way too much. So let's do 9 inches. Right? To make room, for example, for the approach slab. Right? And then the depth, let me exaggerate this a little bit, 20, right? And now you can see that I can also activate the option of slope depth. So let's go 15 inches, for example, 2. So now I have a full culvert right there. This is part of the element now. I can add it to my library, or I can just right off the bat hit OK, and it will update. Okay, now the key on this as well is straight, right? So, but then as well, when I modify it, and remember that I now have a curve option there in my properties, it shows options that we can do with the curve tool, right? So, for example, control the curve with the flat bottom. If I have one, I can just activate it and do it, right? And then two, control the vertical offset if I need it. So let me just mess it up a little bit, right? So you can see what happened, right? So you can switch the depth of that when I select it. So then here I can just make it nicer. So it's all through now. So these are my options, right? So we can do that too. And then as well, I can do a little bit more with this, right? I can just go here and on elevation constraints, we also entertain the option now, as part of the upgrades too, to remember this abutment. Let me move this a little bit out of the way. I want to select it here. This abutment now can follow the option of grounded deck. So if I go to elevation constraints here, the top slope, the cap, I can go grounded deck, and it's going to follow right? So now the abutment is grounded deck here, right? So as well as here. So now if I zoom in here, right, see my hammerhead here is flat, right? So what I can do, switch these to right frame so you can see. Here. See it's put now. Right? The ground is flat. So what I can do is, as I selected here now, with elevation constraints, I can make the top of the cap follow the cross slope grounded deck option, the cross slope of the deck. Now, what is the difference between parallel to deck and grounded deck? We used to have this option. Parallel to deck, basically we were taking the left and right edge elevations of the deck, just putting a line across, and that was called parallel to the deck, to the endpoint. Here it's actually following the cross slope, left and right of that deck, modify the cap, and also will modify the beam seams. So if you change the slope of the deck, right, these options will remain active. I don't know, you see it moving, right? But if I want to be a little bit bolder on that, I can just maybe go to the deck. If I can select it, I can also change the deck. So I can select the deck itself, right? Just change to a drastic cross slope, right? You can see the difference now. Maybe slightly constraints, variable constraints right here. So let me do a very bold change here. Bridge just to show you here, I'm going to change the leftist or right slope. It's right slope. Change 6 positions. So you can see the major change that is what happened. Crowned deck option for the people. Right, so let's do that. 6% process load. So that deck will move all the options and also the peer will just adjust and do the adjustment for the peer custom. Okay, so what's updated? They check with them. Here. So that. Now I see a question about the barriers here, right? So while this is updating, see, look at the change, right? So this went down heavily, so you can see that this is also an option, right? Now, I see a question there about barriers with the approach slab. We have included some enhancement options as well for the approach slab, right? So show you this here too. So let's see what we have done with respect to barriers. Okay, so let's talk about barriers. So it's right here, just to show you the PowerPoint. Right now, yeah, somebody was asking, can we place it on the approach slab? Yes, we can place it. It's another thing. But also, what we can do is extend it. Right. So before, the limits of the barrier were just the limits of the deck itself. Right now, we have offsets, so we can do that. And also the way we cut the barrier when the deck is on a heavy skew, it's also being considered. So these are the major updates on the barrier itself. So what I'm talking about is this. So if I have a barrier right here already placed, right, I can select this. The regular placement hasn't changed, right? But if I have the barrier here now, right, I have the option to say offsets. So I can say, you know, -10. So that will be extended ahead or resistance. See? So I can just change that too. Plus, right, and it will just go inside that too. Right? So also the way it's being cut. Right? So orientation. I'm going to, this is by default, it comes following the skew of the bridge. We will see what happened with start, right? So normal to the path. So you will see how this is cut. Right? See? The deck is here and then just it's not the alignment. So you got kind of a extra part of the barrier sticking out, right? So again, by default, we have changed it. We can modify it too to say follow the skew of the bridge, or the skew of the deck. So now, this is what's going to happen. So now it's just flush with whatever skew is on the deck. Right? Yeah, the breakbacks is coming for the next release. We are implementing that option. Right? Hopefully, it's going to come for the next release. So you have to handle breakbacks. Texas, Florida, almost every DOT does it. They don't want to see these acute angles, sharp corners. So something that everybody does away with the breakbacks, Francis. Will the weight of the core will be added to the transfer and analytical programs? No, it's not part of the analytics. There is no transfer. You will see the abutment as it comes. Right? So just sorry. Does the rail offset follow the curve geometry? Does the rail or the curve follow the profile with the offset is extended? Yeah, it's following the deck. Actually, it's applying that information to the deck. It's not floating in the air. Right? Or if it's not much, or I mean, 10 feet is almost the same, but then it's not much. Remember, this approach slab, right? It's like another deck, so you can place a barrier just on an approach slab. For example, the approach slab is opening up as different from the deck, or it's coming on a curve, and then the bridge is starting on a tangent, so you can place it on top. Okay, so what else I can show you? Oh, right here too. We got another option here that we have enhanced the placement of decorators. You know, we call decorators as let's call it the shadows of the pier and abutments, right? Or the outlines of the structures in at elevation 0 of 2D if you want it. So it will ease the placement of your framing plans or the creation of your framing plans, right? So as you go, these decorators, I can show you here, right here, right? Is that these are what we call the decorators, the extra elements, right? So we used to have just the footing outline. Now we added the piles and the columns, right? So, but here also we added not only that, but also we have the abutments, right? And also we added now, if you place, let me place the rough retaining wall, for example, as the wing wall, right? So we added that option as well to show into that retaining wall. So I just pick it from the library, some type of wing wall here. So this one, for example, right? Just very rough to show you that it will show up for every type. So that's it. So this 2D wing wall option will be shown as well at elevation 0. That's what's coming next. David, right? So, well, maybe I went too quick with the PowerPoint, but yes, it also works with functional components and pier sets. Functional components also work with functional components. So if we treat it as a pier, yeah, as well, yeah, it will work, right? So it works with functional components. If you place it with our tools, right? Place pier or place custom pier, it will obey them, right? So then it will work. Right? Now Nathan asked as well, what about wing walls? Yes, I mean, I'll just show you that. These are the options. It's just place wing walls. When you place it, it's just, again, on the left, on the right, select the proper template that you may have created in your library, right? With footings, with no footings, and place it as just showed you with the raw materials and all, right? The challenge that is happening with many DOTs when we place these wing walls is on the connection, right? They treat the connection way different. They put hinges, corner blocks, sometimes they call it. So every DOT does its own version of a wing wall or an abutment itself, right? So that's why for many DOTs, we are developing for them what we call the parametric cells of functional components. So it's very customized. If you, for example, download the Texas workspace, right? They have their specific libraries for the Texas abutments, right? It's not part of here, it's part of their workspace, right? So they can just create their own parametric cell and place it using our tools. So takes a thing that have like 8 different ones depending on the things that they use, the AIGDs and all of that. So you have to download the workspace, and when you work in that environment, you will be able to access that too and computes quantities. It goes to analytics and so on and so forth. Okay. So this is how we handle the special wing ones connections that they may have, safety wings and all of that that they do. Okay. So now what's other option that I can show you here, right? Right here, for example, right? So one of the last options here is the ability to place what we call, and we can finish with this today, is what we call place barrier on barrier, right? So, for example, before, when you place a median, I mean, all our barriers before, barriers or medians or sidewalks, right? Like they were treated as medians. Our reference was always the deck, right? In terms of OBM, we call it elevation provider. So we pick the elevations from the deck, right? So if you place, in this case, for example, if you place the sidewalk as a barrier, it can be done, right? So if you want to place a barrier on top, or you got to calculate the extra offset coming from the median and then just place the barrier, right? Because it's referenced the deck, right? So we entertain the option that your elevation provider could be as well the barrier itself, right? So what I mean by that is, for example, right, I'm going to just do something quick because of the sake of time. If I need to place, for example, another barrier, let's call it maybe, what they call it, fence protection, right? So before I needed to calculate from the deck, right? Now, when I select the candidate and accept it, right? Look, I didn't select the candidate as the deck. I select the candidate as the barrier, right? Because now, when I continue, remember that it was showing you the deck before? Because now I selected the barrier, place now as a reference point, not the deck, but as a reference point, I can place the barrier itself. So if you want, you can place, I mean, just to illustrate the concept, a barrier on top of the barrier, following exactly the same elevations and everything else. So you got a custom cell, as I said, maybe a height protection, all of that. So you can place it just on top of the barrier without calculating offsets or anything on the deck. So this is how we call the barrier or barrier, that now these can serve as quote unquote elevation provider, right? So one more option that I can just squeeze by the time. I mentioned it, modeling abutment breakbacks will be available in the next release. No, let me correct you, Chad. It's not the abutment breakbacks. The abutment itself, that corner block that hinges, it's done by the workspace that we develop for every DOT because they have their own special configuration. What we call the breakback itself, it's on the deck. That, for example, if I have these in my case at 8 degrees, I mean, this is an acute sharp edge on the deck here. People want to cut it, right? Kind of chamfer it, the deck. That's what it is. One question here. Do barriers have options for open style, post and rail style? Not right now. We can handle these through cells, right? So we can place some elements through a path and then you can select a cell. But what we're doing, for example, here, right? It has a handrail here and then we can place it as a path. But through guardrail with posts at different locations and all of that, right now we are handling these with 3D line style. It has its pros and cons that we can discuss later, but this is how we handle it with a 3D line style for showing purposes. Okay. So what else can we squeeze in on this presentation? For example, yeah, built-up sections. We got these two, right? So when we have our cross frames, we used to do it with standard profiles, right? Now it's coming a lot, at least in the US, these true girder bridges for rail, in which the transversal is kind of a cross frame, right, or a diaphragm, but it was not done with roll shape. Some of them they are, but it was a request to have it as a built-up shape. So what you can do now, if you go back to your library here, let me come back to my cross-frame library, for example. Cross-frame. If I go to my cross-frame library, right, like this, for example, here, you see that cross-frame library here, right? We have the option to do it as a built-up shape. So, for example, invert. Oh, steel, sorry, steel here, right? So we can control the option to do it to frame here, right? You see here, for example, right? So this diaphragm will give you an option. It was a profile, right? So a standard section, right? But we can now select the option to make it a built-up shape. So we can just do that as well. So it's just a matter of specifying how you're going to do it in a built-up section, right? So that's available to create your own sections here. Right? So there's some that, or you can just do it as a build-up. As you select the diagonals, so you will be able to do it on this. Okay, so this is just one option right here, as I showed you in the PowerPoint. Those struts, we can just create a new one. It's a frame type, built-up type. Right, so we gotta create a new one. Okay, so that's that. And let's see, one more questions. Yeah, thank you, Said, for answering that. Yes, yeah. Will be more control on different levels for different elements. Show the variable detect sheet, different levels for different barriers, so we can turn them on the tree. The decorators are much better for explaining termination. Yeah, we're having a 2D as well. Yeah, Said is working actually on the 2D workflow as well. But also remember that in your feature definitions, right, these decorators, they come in their own level, right? In OBM, at the standard, we call it the OBD D level, right? So when you go into the decorators, so we have on our level libraries, let's explore this a little bit, right? So we have the bridge levels, right? These are the standard levels, OBMs, right? But also we have the D levels. So the underbar D are the ones that we call the decorator levels. So you got a little bit of control. You can define it too, depending on your element templates or how you place it. So you can define that. Some questions here too. So well, that's all there is for questions. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Said, for answering that. So if any more questions, just feel free to email us, right? So and then email us your suggestions. That's all we have for today. One more time, thank you so much for joining us in this session of Ask Alex. So one more time, thank you for your attendance. And see you soon, either present or offline.